I used to think I was just being paranoid. That I was the insecure one. The jealous girlfriend who overthought everything. Because my boyfriend always said the same thing. She's just my childhood friend. She wore his clothes. Slept over at his place. Tagged along on trips that were supposed to be just us. And every time I spoke up, the answer was always the same. You're thinking too much. So this time, when he brought his childhood friend along, I invited mine. Because if loyalty is optional, then so is revenge. Chapter 1. When Chad quietly unzipped the tent and slipped out, I wasn't asleep. I sat up and watched him crawl into another tent. From inside came a soft, kitten-like voice, light, teasing, tickling the back of my mind. Is she mad? I'm so sorry, it's all my fault. If I were your girlfriend, I'd never fight with you over something so small. I shouldn't have come, I know, but I didn't want to miss a single second with you. Why don't you stay here tonight? She'll never find out if you go back early tomorrow. I know you already have a girlfriend. I just can't help it. A man and a woman, alone in the dark, dry tinder meeting fire. There was no need to spell out what would happen next. Those two shameless idiots, right under my nose. I clenched my teeth, ready to storm over and tear them apart. But then a different thought hit me. If he could cheat on me, why couldn't I cheat on him? So I turned and unzipped the tent next to theirs. The man inside raised an eyebrow. From next door the woman's soft voice floated over at the right moment, his eyes flickered, and a smile curved his lips. Well, look at you, getting cheated on. How does it feel? I shrugged off my jacket and straddled him in 2 quick steps. You're right, I said. He cheated on me, so I'm just returning the favor. Chapter 2. It was a long break from school, a full week off classes. Chad and I had planned to go hiking together. It was supposed to be our 1-year anniversary trip. A year ago, when I first started college, I met Chad through a campus club. He was one of those popular guys, good-looking, well-off, everyone knew his name. At the freshman orientation, he performed a song called Good Riddance, Time of Your Life, singing and playing guitar, and instantly won over half the seniors. I never really understood why someone like him would like me. He chased me so hard, bringing breakfast to my dorm every morning without fail. Flowers, gifts, movies, dinners. Under that kind of persistence, my defenses didn't stand a chance. I said yes. Back then, I had no idea he already had a childhood friend. Her name was Chloe. Same year as us, art major. From the very first time I met her, I could tell she wasn't as innocent as she looked. And sure enough, I was right. Whenever Chad and I went on dates, she'd always find some excuse to stir things up. She'd invite him to sing love songs with her at karaoke. Pretend to have a stomachache during a movie and drag him away. Get on the Ferris wheel before me. Cling to him during an escape room, saying she was scared. She always called herself his little sister. But she did things only flirty girls would do. I told Chad I didn't like her. He said they'd grown up together, that it was just like family, and told me not to overthink it. My patience finally snapped on Chloe's birthday. She invited a bunch of people to her party, and me too. But I can't drink, so I didn't go. That night, I got a call from Chad. The person on the other end said they were from the karaoke front desk. He'd left his phone in the room and asked me to pick it up. So in the middle of the night, I took a cab to the KTV, then another to his apartment to drop it off. What I didn't expect was that the person who opened the door was Chloe. Chad didn't live on campus. He rented an apartment off-site. He and his friends often threw parties there, so people crashing overnight wasn't unusual. But Chloe, she was wearing Chad's shirt, and there was a suspicious red mark on her neck. She looked startled and quickly tried to cover it. Sorry, Anna, she said, flustered. I got drunk and threw up on my clothes. I didn't have anything else to wear, so I borrowed Chad's shirt. Please don't be mad. I said nothing, just looked past her into the living room. Guys were passed out everywhere. Chad was asleep on the couch, shirtless, and there was a girl's hairband resting on his chest. It was obviously Chloe's. We had a huge fight that night. When I told him I wanted to break up, he finally gave in and promised to keep his distance from Chloe. She behaved for a while. But only for a while. This hiking trip was supposed to celebrate our first anniversary. But Chad invited Chloe along. "We're all friends," he said. "She just wanted to get out for a bit." I figured, why not? I thought about it for a moment, then opened my phone and texted Jason. "I'm officially inviting you, so you'd better show up." His reply came fast, 2 words. "Beg me." I clenched my jaw. "Fine. Consider yourself begged." Jason was my childhood friend. The kind I literally grew up with, diapers and all. A second later, he called. His voice carried a faint smile. "So what made you think of inviting me hiking?" I kept my tone flat. "Because Chad invited his childhood friend too." He paused, then said, a little irritated. "Oh, so I'm just your prop now?" He wasn't wrong. I wanted to make Chad jealous, to let him taste the same frustration he'd given me for months. So I asked quietly. "You still coming?" He sighed, the sound soft and resigned. "Well, I can't just sit back and watch you get pushed around, can I?" Chapter 3. When Chad drove over to pick me up the next morning, Chloe was already sitting in the passenger seat. She looked at me apologetically. "Sorry, Anna. I get carsick, so I can only sit in the front." I stood outside the car, glancing at Chad in the driver's seat. He was fiddling with his phone, showing no reaction at all. I took a deep breath and opened the back door. Just as he was about to start the engine, I said, "We're waiting for someone." "Who?" A moment later, Jason appeared at the entrance of the complex. He was wearing a black hooded jacket that day, tall, lean, sharp-featured. He stood out without even trying. Chad had met him before, so he recognized him right away. "He's coming too?" I shrugged.
Yeah.
He was bored at home and wanted to get out. "We're all friends anyway, might as well go together." It was Chloe's first time meeting him, and she kept sneaking glances even after Jason got in. I introduced them on purpose. "Jason, this is my good friend." She immediately turned with a bright smile. "Hi, I'm Chloe." Jason didn't even lift his eyes. The air turned a little awkward. Chloe was undeniably pretty, the pure, gentle type, with dimples when she smiled. Most guys wouldn't be able to resist that face. But Jason wasn't like most guys. Her smile faltered. She muttered, "Handsome, but kinda rude," before turning back around. She didn't know Jason wasn't into girls at all, at least not in that way. His world revolved around code and algorithms. A purebred tech guy. We hit the highway. Chad drove smoothly, and the hum of the engine made me drowsy. The air conditioning was too low. I was just about to ask Chad to turn it up when something soft landed on my shoulders. A faint scent of mint and citrus. "Jason." He didn't say anything, just tucked the edge of the jacket around me with quiet care. I narrowed my eyes, glancing at Chad. He looked like he hadn't noticed. But his hand on the steering wheel tightened, the knuckles turning white. It took us 3 hours to reach Mount Solace. With everyone on break, the mountain was crowded. Everywhere you looked, people, lines, noise. Chad glanced at me and reached out his hand. "Hold on to me, so we don't get separated." I didn't take it. Chloe did. Then, as if realizing what she'd done, she quickly let go and smiled. "Sorry, Anna. I'm just used to it. Old habit." I looked at her harmless, doe-eyed face and felt nothing but disdain. But she wasn't my target today. So I looped my arm through Jason's instead. Totally understandable. Jason and I are the same. Chad's face darkened instantly. And Chloe, ever the fuel-to-fire type, added sweetly. "Wow, so you two must be really close, huh?" Grew up together, childhood sweethearts, how cute. She didn't get to finish, because Chad suddenly grabbed her hand and walked off without a word. He was angry. And the moment I realized that, a breath of satisfaction spread through me, like finally spitting out something bitter that had been stuck in my throat for months. Even the corner of my lips couldn't help but lift higher. Jason shot me a sideways look, his tone dry. Seeing him jealous makes you happy? I was happy, but not because he was jealous. It was because that disgusting, crawling feeling I'd been choking on. He finally tasted it too. Uncomfortable? Good. I'd been uncomfortable for half a year. I let go of Jason's arm.
Yeah.
Watching him miserable feels damn good. Jason looked like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't. There were tons of people at the foot of the mountain, mostly college students on holiday. Even a few groups of tall, good-looking high school seniors were there, all around 18, faces so fresh you could practically squeeze the youth out of them. If one of them called my roommate a sis, she'd probably lose her mind on the spot. A pair of hands suddenly landed on my shoulders. I turned and met Jason's half-smiling eyes. His brows arched slightly, his tone teasing. What's wrong? Got too distracted by the view to move? Not exactly. I nudged him aside. Move out of my way and I'll move just fine. Honestly, who could outshine this guy anyway? Jason gave a short, amused snort and fell into step beside me. His right hand came to rest on my shoulder, pulling me slightly closer in a protective gesture. Even with the crowd pressing in around us, no one got too close. He'd always been like this ever since we were kids. I guess it had become a habit. Then, out of nowhere, I asked. Jason, do you like me? He glanced at me sideways. I don't mess with taken women. Chapter 4. By the time we reached the top of Mount Solace, it was already 10 p.m. We planned to stay overnight in tents so we could watch the sea of clouds the next morning. Chloe didn't know how to set one up, so Chad helped her. She stood beside him, waving a small fan to cool him down. Chad, you're amazing. You even know how to pitch a tent by yourself. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know what to do tonight. I'm so glad you're here. A faint smile flashed in Chad's eyes, he clearly enjoyed the attention. He turned to me. Anna, do you know how to set yours up? I'll help you in a sec. But before he could finish, Jason had already set mine up in record time. I handed Jason a bottle of water with a bright smile. Thanks. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know what to do tonight. Good thing you're here. Chad's face darkened instantly, like he just swallowed something foul. Seeing that, Chloe quickly jumped in, pretending to scold me. Anna, that's not right. You're still Chad's girlfriend, how could you let another guy set up your tent? And say things like that to him? Since this little brat wanted to start something, I wasn't about to hold back. I shot back. Oh, so you do remember I'm his girlfriend? That's funny, I almost thought you were, the way you've been glued to him all day. Following him around, handing him water, fanning him like it's your job. Jason might be an outsider to me, but what about Chad to you? And besides, everything I said to Jason, you said to Chad first, didn't you? What, it's fine when you say it, but not when I do? Her lips quivered. She twisted her fingers together, putting on that pitiful little act. I've always thought of Chad as an older brother. I didn't realize you disliked me this much. I'm sorry, it's my fault. You can misunderstand me if you want, but please don't misunderstand Chad. She glanced at Chad, her eyes reddening. I'm sorry. This was supposed to be your trip together. It's my fault for insisting on coming. I'll pack up and head down the mountain now, Anna. Please don't be mad. With that, she turned as if to start packing her things. Chad frowned and grabbed her wrist, his tone impatient. It's too late to go down the mountain now. Chloe's eyes shimmered with tears, her voice trembling as she looked at me. As if I were the one forcing her to leave. I just don't want Anna to be upset. Or make things hard for you. God, she deserved an Oscar for this performance. Seriously, she could give plastic a bad name. Chad turned toward me, face blank, his tone defensive. Nothing's going on between Chloe and me. I've always seen her as a sister. Something pressed lightly against my shoulder. I looked to the side. Jason was watching me with that knowing look in his eyes. I get it, he said. I've always seen Anna as a sister too. We've been like that since we were kids. You don't mind, right, Chad? He blinked innocently, mimicking Chloe's tone almost perfectly. Both of their faces darkened at once. Damn, I could hardly hold back a laugh. Chad clenched his jaw, trying to keep his composure. But finally snapped. He marched over, shot Jason a murderous glare, then yanked me into the tent. What's going on between you and Jason? Nothing, I said evenly. We're completely innocent. I've always seen him as a brother, don't overthink it. Word for word, the same line Chad always used on me whenever I brought up Chloe. And tonight, I wanted to see just how he'd like the taste of it. He froze for a long moment, his expression hardening, lips pressed into a thin, pale line. Outside, Chloe's voice drifted in, fanning the flames. Anna, don't fight, okay? Just talk it out. Chad, I'm sure Anna didn't mean it. Give her another chance. Chad stayed silent, staring at me for what felt like forever. Then suddenly let out a low laugh. So that's why you brought Jason. To get back at me, huh? He wasn't stupid. He'd seen right through me. I didn't say a word. That silence was as good as an admission. His tone softened. He took my hand gently. All right. I get it. I'll keep my distance from her. I won't make you angry again. I parted my lips, wanting to tell him. You said the exact same thing last time. But in the end, I said nothing. At midnight, my phone alarm went off, my usual bedtime reminder. Chad slipped an arm around my waist.
Yeah.
We should sleep. Need to get up early for the sunrise tomorrow. His hand slid up my back toward the zipper of my jacket. I turned sharply, wary. What are you doing? He spoke softly. It's been a year, Anna. You've never let me touch you. We're on a mountain, I cut him off. Then tomorrow, when we're back at my place. A wave of nausea rolled through me. Chad, I told you. I'm not ready. He looked at me for a long time. All right. Sleep, then. I'll stay until you fall asleep, and then I'll go. Chapter 5. When Chad's phone buzzed for the nth time, he called my name twice, just to make sure I was asleep, then quietly slipped out of the tent. I was certain the one messaging him was Chloe. So the moment he left, I got up and followed. Chloe's tent was set up a little farther away. She was the one who'd picked that spot. At first, I didn't know why. Now I did. It was for convenience. Originally, I just wanted to catch them red-handed. I even had my phone out, camera ready. But when I caught sight of Jason's tent nearby, something inside me shifted. If I really wanted to get back at Chad, the best way was to let him taste the same betrayal. In the still night, I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The man beneath me stared up at me for a long time. Long enough for the sounds from the next tent to fade away. Then he tilted his lips into a faint smile. All right. Before I could react, he sat up and pulled me toward him. One hand cupping the back of my head. His kiss carried a trace of tobacco, rough, consuming. It stole my breath. Chad had kissed me before too. But his were always soft, fleeting. A brush of lips and nothing more. Jason's kiss wasn't like that. It hit like a wave I couldn't resist. The air between us thickened, charged with heat. The faint taste of something dangerous spreading through the tent. I felt like I was sinking. Lost in the pull of a restless sea. All around me was Jason's scent, warm, intoxicating. His hand pressed against my waist, hot, possessive, and unrelenting. Jason. Jason. I whispered his name, gently pushing against him when he paused. I think I regret this. In the heat of the moment, everything had felt uncontrollable. But as the rush faded, a sharp clarity cut through. How was I any different from Chad now? Jason froze, his lips brushing against my cheek. Regret what? His breath fell against my brow, his voice low and dangerous. Like a hook dipped in poison, pulling me closer. Anna, he murmured again, voice rough. What do you regret? His Adam's apple moved as he swallowed hard. Then he lowered his eyes, hiding the restrained fire behind them. And then, my phone started buzzing. On the screen, Chad's name flashed again and again. But my body felt weak, like I couldn't even lift a hand to reach for it. The vibration went on and on. As if it wouldn't stop until I answered. Jason clicked his tongue, irritated, and reached for the phone. I caught his arm, shaking my head. We couldn't let it all come out. Not yet. Still, he answered. Chad's voice came through, low and heavy. It's late. You're not in your tent. Where are you? My heart leapt into my throat. Jason lowered his eyes, his tone sharp. Right next door to you. Wanna come over and check? Shit. After a moment, I heard Chad's voice, shocked, disbelieving. What did you just say? It's the middle of the night. Why would she be in your tent? Jason replied lazily. That's strange. Didn't you go to Chloe's tent first? There was a pause, then the line went dead with a single beep. Guess he didn't like being caught red-handed. I said nothing, shoving Jason away as I grabbed my jacket and put it on. He raised an eyebrow. Mad at me? I was. Not because of him, but because I hadn't planned to expose Chad and Chloe yet. I wanted to make it sting more, to make it satisfying. But thanks to Jason's little remark, even an idiot like Chad would figure it out now. As I finished dressing and turned to leave, Jason's voice came from behind me, low, flat. Anna. I'm not your tool for getting back at Chad. I turned around. His face was hidden in the dark. And I couldn't read what was in his eyes. But I could guess. He was angry. When I got back, Chad was in my tent. His eyes swept over me from head to toe, his voice tight. What the hell is going on with you two? I was tired. I lay down in my sleeping bag, turning my back to him. Relax. I'm not like you. I don't get turned on by mountain air. He went silent for a long time, then finally muttered. Anna. I'm sorry. I cut him off coldly. From this moment on, we're done. Now get out of my sight. Chapter 6. At 6 in the morning, the mountaintop was still wrapped in fog. The air was damp and cold. A message from Chad sat quietly on my phone. Just a few words. Sorry. I blocked him without hesitation. Bad luck to even see it. By the time I got up, the peak was already crowded with people. And then I saw Jason. Tall, lean, dressed in a gray tracksuit. He stood out effortlessly among the crowd. A calm figure untouched by all the noise around him. Several girls had gathered near him, looking up with bright smiles. One even held out her phone, probably asking for his contact. He said something, and after a brief exchange, they left looking disappointed, though reluctant. So he didn't give it to them. I don't know why. But my steps felt lighter as I walked toward him. Up early, huh, Jason? He looked cheerful, grinning at me. Pretty much. I've been up a while, saw quite a show, too. I followed his gaze. Chloe was trailing behind Chad, lost in the crowd. Her eyes were red, and his face showed nothing but irritation. When Chad turned, his eyes met mine. He looked like he wanted to say something, but didn't. I turned away, expression flat, stomach twisting. Jason reached out and playfully flicked my ear. Hey, stop thinking about it. Look, sun's up. Ahead of us, the sun broke through the clouds, splintering the sky into light. Golden rays spread across the mountaintop, illuminating everything, the mist lifting, the ridges stretching into the distance, the sea of clouds rolling beneath the sky. It was breathtaking, unreal. Like standing inside a dream. Around us, people gasped in awe. Phones lifted into the air, hey, photos, videos. The sound of shutters and laughter all around. And for a moment, I was completely lost in the beauty of the sunrise. Jason waved a hand in front of my face to get my attention, then pulled out his phone. His eyes curved into a smile, light glinting off them. Come on, let's take a picture. You don't get views like this every day. I tilted my head slightly, glancing toward Chad. He was already heading down the mountain, Chloe tugging at his sleeve. He yanked his arm free, looking completely annoyed. And in that moment, I realized this climb had been so worth it. Chad had always known that his relationship with Chloe crossed a line. He just enjoyed the drama, two women fighting over him. Disgusting. And I'd actually wasted months of my life on someone like that. Worse, I'd almost thrown myself away trying to get revenge on him. Jason snapped a few pictures of me, then asked a passerby to take one of us together. He stood close enough that I could smell that familiar clean mix of mint and citrus that was uniquely his. The person with the camera smiled, giving us directions. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Just as the shutter clicked, Jason's fingers brushed against mine, lightly, deliberately. For a second, my mind went blank. Time stretched thin, the world around me blurring. And all I could feel was the warmth at my fingertips. A quiet spark running straight through my chest. We'd already been physically close the night before. But somehow, this small touch made my heart race in a way I couldn't explain. Then, just as quickly, Jason let go. Accident, he murmured. The photo came out beautifully. In it, I was smiling softly at the camera. The rising sun glowing behind me. The endless sea of clouds at my back. And beside me, Jason. His head slightly tilted down. Eyes gentle, resting quietly on me. Chapter 7. After we came back from Mount Solace, Chad started pestering me even more. I honestly thought he'd lost his mind. We'd already broken up. No one was stopping him from flirting with Chloe, hitting the clubs, or living his best playboy life. So what the hell was he doing trying to win me back? Putting on this act of regret and heartbreak. Who exactly was it for? Idiot. Jason, on the other hand, seemed genuinely happy that we'd broken up. When I asked why, he said academics should come first, and that my dating life had been his biggest headache when explaining things to my mom. By the time I dragged myself to my 8 a.m. class, barely awake, he had already taken the bus across town to Southside. Just to pick up my favorite mac and cheese. Try these, he said. His brows lifting slightly, like a kid waiting for praise. I had just picked one up when a hand slid in from the other side, offering me a box of pancakes from Northside. Chad sat down next to me. Got up early to buy these. Your favorite. I stared at him coldly. That rice roll place was his favorite. I'd only ever said I liked it because of him. Truth was, I couldn't stand it. Jason's lips curved faintly as he pushed the box back toward Chad. Seems like you didn't know, Anna's never liked pancakes, even as a kid. Chad's smile faltered for a moment. But he quickly recovered with that same fake charm. So what, you only liked them because I did? Guess that means you really did love me. That was before, I said, frowning. We're over now. Chad slipped an arm around my shoulders. I don't remember agreeing to that. Jason's gaze fixed on him. His dark eyes carrying a quiet warning, steady and cold. You don't need to. Then, one by one, he pried Chad's fingers off me. The tension between the two of them lingered until the professor walked in. Chad let out a cold snort and finally backed off, returning to his seat. "Anna," he said quietly, "I'm not giving up." I never expected Chad to be bold enough to publicly confess to me at the campus music festival. He was one of the lead guitarists in the music club, of course he was performing. Before the event, he'd even asked me, "What song do you want to hear me play?" I'd snapped back. "Are you crazy? What's it got to do with me?" He just smiled and said nothing. When Chad walked out onto the stage, guitar in hand, the crowd erupted in screams. "Chad. Oh my God, my idol. That song he sang at freshman orientation, Good Riddance, Time of Your Life, it almost made me swoon. But he has a girlfriend. I just like his singing, not him. Besides, haven't you heard? They broke up." So when Chad said into the mic, "This song is for someone very special to me," the audience immediately buzzed with curiosity. Everyone trying to guess who it was for. Some even guessed Chloe. She'd been by his side for so long. Tagging along everywhere, always acting like the perfect partner. Sometimes even more attentive than I ever was. It made sense that people would think it was her. The song was Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer. Chad sang it beautifully, his voice low, steady, rich with feeling. Music was in his bones, he was born for this stage. When the song ended, he stood up and scanned the crowd. His eyes landing right on me. "Anna." He called out. But I didn't hear what came next. Because someone behind me covered my ears. The crowd was roaring, cheers, screams, applause echoing across the campus. But all I could hear was the heartbeat of the person standing behind me. Strong. Steady. Close. Across the sea of people, Chad's gaze locked with mine. His expression was unreadable. I could guess what he wanted to say. But Jason didn't want me to hear it. And I didn't want to either. Chapter 8. We didn't even finish the music festival before Jason pulled me away. He took me to a late-night food stall outside campus. He remembered exactly what I liked. Ordered a bunch of dishes I loved and even got the details right. Extra chili, scallions, and don't forget the cilantro. I liked fish too, but I was too lazy to pick out the bones. Jason did it for me, carefully separating the flesh and dropping it into my bowl. He'd been doing that for years. And I'd gotten used to letting him. "Jason," I said, stirring the fish in my bowl, my tone casual. "Why did you choose to come to Creston in the first place?" After the college entrance exams, he'd asked where I planned to go. I said Creston. With his grades, he could have easily gotten into a top university in Beaumont. But he chose Creston too. I'd asked him why before. He'd said, "Because it's fun." Now, I wanted to ask again. Jason was quiet for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Didn't I already tell you? Creston's fun." He placed another piece of fish in my bowl, his dark eyes glinting. I didn't buy it. "That's the only reason?" He tilted his head. "You sure you want me to answer that?"
Yeah.
He pressed his lips together, eyes locking onto mine. "And because you're here." For a second, my throat tightened. His gaze was deep, steady, almost burning. It felt like it could swallow me whole. Flustered, I turned away, and in the process, knocked over my drink, splashing it onto my shirt. Jason leaned back a little, tongue pressing against his cheek as he let out a quiet laugh. "Told you not to ask, but you just had to. Your mom told me to look after you, didn't she? So here I am." He handed me a few napkins. I dabbed at the wet spot on my clothes. It was an answer that made perfect sense. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a small wave of disappointment rippled through me. When I got back to the dorm, none of my roommates were asleep yet. The moment they saw me, their eyes lit up like fireworks. "Anna, do you even know you're trending right now?" I could guess. After Chad's big public confession at the festival, of course it'd blow up. My roommate hooked an arm around my neck. Not just that. Spill it, who was that insanely hot guy standing behind you? I swear he's like 186 centimeters, tall, handsome, and dressed so well. My God. Well, she wasn't wrong. Jason had always had good taste in clothes, his mom owned a boutique, after all. How is it, she continued, that a guy like that isn't on any of the campus rankings? I snorted. You mean that stupid forum poll, the A Campus Heartthrob and Goddess list? The one where I'm 6th and Chloe's 2nd? My roommate scratched her head.
Yeah.
Honestly, you being 6th is already unfair. Chloe being 2nd? Total joke. I yawned. Jason doesn't do rankings. His kind of handsome isn't for ordinary mortals to rate. Honestly, if Jason ever joined, Chad would probably lose his precious number 1 spot overnight. And sure enough, by the next morning, the internet proved me right. Overnight, Jason had claimed the number 1 spot on the forum's ranking. The comments section was chaos, girls fangirling non-stop, begging for his socials and his number. Some even saying they'd gladly have his babies. I couldn't help laughing and texted him. Congratulations, Jason, for becoming our new campus legend. Guess you won't be getting any peace now. When I'd been on that list, my DMs had exploded for months before things finally quieted down. He was in for at least half a year of that. Jason replied, just wait. Then, because of course he would. He went on the forum himself and posted. Anna, you're just gonna let them steal me away like this. Great. Now my inbox was the one getting bombarded again. He always knew exactly how to pull this kind of stunt. Back in high school, girls from other classes used to send Jason love letters. He'd always deflect by using me as a shield. Ask Anna, he'd say. After that, no one dared give him letters anymore. Instead, they all came to me. Some interrogated me about our relationship. Some begged me to deliver their notes. And a few even tried to bribe me. One afternoon, I stormed into the computer lab to find him. Only to see him lounging in front of his laptop, casually playing a little game he'd coded himself. When he saw me, his grin was infuriating. Well, my human shield's here. God, I wanted to strangle him. But I didn't. Because the game on his screen caught my attention. He'd made a simple platformer, kind of like Super Mario. Nothing fancy, but the levels were clever. And each one ended with a hidden little surprise, an Easter egg. After watching him play a couple of rounds, I snatched the laptop. Move. My turn. The final level was hard. I kept failing jump after jump. Jason took the laptop back, breezed through it in seconds. But when he reached the final flag, he handed it back to me. Go on, he said. You finish it. The little character slid down the flagpole. Just as the words level complete flashed, the screen went black. Then, petals began to fall from the top of the screen, softly, endlessly. A tiny pixelated figure appeared, gathering the petals one by one, threading them together into a massive rose. The little character looked strangely familiar. Like I'd seen it somewhere before. And when the rose finally bloomed across the screen, it was vivid and wild, beautifully alive. Anna, Jason's voice came from beside me. Low, rough, almost teasing. This is for you, he said. One of a kind, in the whole world. My breath caught. And in that instant, something inside me, that tightly wound string, snapped with a soft, clear twang. Chapter 9. The last time Chad reached out to me, he asked me to meet him at his apartment. When I told Jason about it over text, he told me not to go. But I went anyway. Because Chad had sent me a message that said, "This will be the last time. I won't bother you again." When I arrived, he was alone. The apartment had been carefully decorated, roses, candles, a fancy dinner spread on the table. Anna, he said softly. The first time I saw you, I thought you were different. There were so many people in the club, but you weren't like the others. When they teased you and you stood there not knowing what to do. I decided then, I'd protect you. He wasn't wrong. When I first joined the guitar club, 2 senior members had messed with me. They said it was tradition for new members to buy milk tea for the seniors. When I didn't, they accused me of thinking I was better than them. Then they said, fine, forget the milk tea, just give us your number. It was Chad who stepped in, saying there was no such rule, they just wanted my contact info. He'd taken some heat from them afterward. But later, after his breakout performance at the freshman orientation concert, the seniors let it go because he'd brought so much attention to the club. For that, I'd always been grateful. After spending time with you, he continued, I realized you really are this innocent, sweet girl, and I cut him off, impatient. Spare me the nostalgia, Chad. What do you actually want? He went quiet for a while, then suddenly dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from behind him. Inside was a diamond necklace. Under the soft light, it glittered, easily worth a small fortune. Anna, I was wrong. Please, give me another chance. That night, I lost it because of you and Jason. I wasn't thinking straight. It'll never happen again. I've already cut things off with Chloe, I swear. From now on, it'll only be you. I'll never let you get hurt again. Anna, please forgive me. Can we start over? I stared at him coldly, feeling absolutely nothing. Do you really love me? He nodded without hesitation. I do. Then tell me, Chad. Did you ever notice I don't even like pancakes? Did you ever notice my favorite thing is that little cafe downtown that makes the best mac and cheese? That I love spicy food, love cilantro, love fish. But hate picking out the bones myself? When you walked out halfway through a movie, did you think about how that felt for me? When you flirted with Chloe in front of your friends, did you think about how humiliated I was? When you sang love songs with her at karaoke, did you ever think about how I looked to everyone else, like a joke? On her birthday, when you got drunk and let her stay over. When she opened your apartment door wearing your shirt, did you think I wouldn't be angry? And that night on the mountain, when you were with her, did you even feel guilty? I took a slow, deep breath. My voice steady, every word sharp and deliberate. You never really loved me, Chad. You just couldn't stand losing. It wasn't about me, it was about Jason. And your stupid male pride. Chad, I don't want to keep doing this. It's pointless. His hand loosened around the jewelry box until it dropped to the floor with a soft thud. He looked up at me, a faint, bitter smile tugging at his lips. Anna. I guess you really don't love me anymore. In that moment, Jason's face flashed through my mind. The way he'd raise an eyebrow and smile at me, easy and unguarded. And I smiled too, faintly. You're right, Chad. I don't love you anymore. I've seen what it looks like when I do. And this isn't it. No shouting, no tears, no drama. Just quiet acceptance. As we finally put an end to what used to be called love. Chapter 10. By the time I left Chad's apartment, it was already late. He offered to drive me back to campus, but I shook my head. I can call a cab. Don't bother. His voice carried a hint of bitterness. So we can't even be friends? I didn't look back as I walked away. A good ex, I said, should stay dead. What I didn't expect was to find Jason waiting outside my dorm. He was crouched near the entrance, looking for all the world like an abandoned puppy. Jason? I called out. He looked up at me, eyes shadowed and unreadable. Did you two get back together? His voice was rough, cold at the edges. I shook my head. I told him we're done. No more drama. He agreed. His expression softened slightly. And for the first time, light flickered faintly in those dark eyes. Good. Then he stood up too fast. After squatting for so long, the sudden movement made him sway unsteadily. I hurried over and caught him. He slipped an arm around my waist, pulling me close. Silent, firm, his chin resting against my shoulder. I thought you weren't coming back tonight. He wasn't wrong. If I had forgiven Chad, I wouldn't have come back at all. And what if I didn't? I teased softly. You'd wait out here all night? He didn't answer, just held me tighter. A long time passed before I heard his quiet reply.
Yeah.
All night. The night air was still. And something heavy and unspoken hung between us. A tension that felt both fragile and electric. Jason, I whispered.
Yeah.
I regret it. What? It took several deep breaths before I could say it. My ears burning with the words. That night. I shouldn't have pushed you away. He froze, then slowly pulled back enough to look me in the eye. Which night? Mount Solace. His gaze hardened. Dark waves rising beneath the calm surface. Like something was about to break loose. Anna. His voice trembled faintly. Do you mean that? I didn't answer. Instead, I rose on my toes and pressed my lips to his. Warm, certain, and without hesitation. Chapter 11. After senior year ended, Jason stayed on at the company where he'd been interning. And I moved back to my hometown. My parents gave me some money, and I opened a small dessert shop. Surprisingly, business was good. I offered a lot of different treats, plus delivery, free of charge. Jason's career took off too. He went from an entry-level employee to a team leader. And now he was on track to become a department manager. He was talented, it made sense. But as he got busier, so did I. We still texted every morning and night, sharing little updates about our days. But neither of us ever crossed that invisible line. We stayed in that quiet, mutual understanding. A kind of unspoken affection that neither of us dared to define. Sometime later, Chad reached out again, asking how I'd been. I'm doing fine, I said. His voice, faint through the phone, didn't sound real. Anna. My only regret is that I hurt you. I smiled faintly. Not just me. You hurt Chloe too. After I broke up with Chad, Chloe confessed to him, but he turned her down. After that, she spiraled, became known as the school flirt. Her reputation plummeting fast. I saw her once, not long before graduation. She was smoking, a bitter smile on her face. He thought I really liked him, she said. But I just followed him for too long. It became a habit, that's all. Now that so many people like me, why would I care about him? Her voice trembled slightly. And she blinked hard, pushing back tears. He's not even worth a damn. On the phone, Chad went silent for a long time before finally whispering. I'm sorry. I answered softly. You should tell her that. Later, I heard his family went bankrupt. His music career had barely started. And just like that, it was over. He took on multiple part-time jobs to help pay off his family's debts. Eventually, a wealthy older woman took interest in him. Paid off everything he owed. But in return, Chad became nothing more than a gilded bird trapped in a cage. And I couldn't help but think. Maybe that was its own kind of karma. On Christmas Eve, my mom asked if I was seeing anyone. If you are, she said, bring him home sometime so I can meet him. I was busy icing a cake and answered offhandedly, no, I'm not. Then she changed her tone. No? Then what about that picture in your phone, the one of you and Jason? I froze, heat rushing to my cheeks. Mom. You were snooping through my phone? You didn't lock it, she said innocently. I just happened to see it. She leaned closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing some big secret. Jason's a good one. I've watched that boy grow up since he was little. Honestly, I always knew you two would end up together. Why? I asked, half curious, half embarrassed. She grinned. Think about it. When you two were kids playing house, wasn't he always the one marrying you? Memories I hadn't thought of in years suddenly came rushing back. Jason and I really had grown up together, it wasn't just a figure of speech. His mom and mine were best friends. And they even bought apartments in the same neighborhood. Back then, there were a lot of kids around our age. And everyone loved playing make-believe. Pretending to get married like the adults on TV. But my groom was always Jason. If another kid wanted to play the groom, Jason would pull a candy from his pocket and bargain. Let me be the groom and I'll trade you this candy. That brat. So he'd had his eye on me since we were kids? After that, Jason and I ended up in the same elementary school, middle school, and high school. We walked to and from school together every single day. He was always drilling one thing into my head. No dating. Focus on your studies. And I actually listened. Until college, when I met Chad in our club. I'd never been pursued before. He was the first. Flowers, little gifts, sweet words every day. I fell into that gentle trap before I even realized it. By the time Jason found out, Chad and I were already together. He was furious for days. Back then, I didn't understand why. Now I do. He'd been guarding his good girl for years, only to watch another guy steal her away. Of course he was mad. No wonder he used to lecture me every day about how Chad wasn't good enough for me. So that was it. I couldn't help but laugh. A warm, giddy feeling spreading through my chest like climbing vines. All this time, I thought Jason's care for me was just friendly. Maybe a little bit of harmless teasing. He was the kind of person everyone liked. Smart, handsome, steady, effortlessly good at everything. And me? Aside from looking decent and being well behaved, I didn't have much going for me. I always thought he protected me simply because we were close. But I'd been wrong. Good friends don't look at each other the way he looks at me. I slipped off my gloves and glanced at my mom, still busy in the kitchen. I'm going to Seattle for a few days, I said. I'll be back before Christmas. She looked up, startled. What are you going to Seattle for, right before the holidays? I smiled. To bring you back a son-in-law. Chapter 12. When I arrived in Seattle, the Christmas bells hadn't yet begun to ring. I'd tricked Jason into giving me his apartment address by saying I wanted to send him food delivery. Then hopped straight into a cab and sped there. At his door, I had to stand for a while just to calm my pounding heart. It took several deep breaths before I finally pressed the doorbell. Jason opened the door in his pajamas. Eyes wide with disbelief. But mostly, with joy. You? What are you doing here? I lifted the takeout bag in my hand. Brought you dinner. His throat bobbed slightly as he swallowed. Then he took the lobster from me and pulled me into his arms. Gently, as if he was afraid the moment might vanish if he held too tight. Later, we sat on the sofa. I waited while Jason, wearing gloves, peeled the lobster for me with quiet focus. Jason, I asked suddenly, have you liked me for a long time? His hands froze mid-motion. There was no point keeping the pretense anymore. I already knew the answer. Jason gave a soft hum of acknowledgement. I tilted my head. Then why didn't you tell me? He turned toward me, voice low and rough. You didn't want to be with me. I was afraid that if I said it out loud, I'd lose even the friendship we had. That really was my fault. After that night, the night I kissed Jason first, I started avoiding him. I had just broken up with Chad, my mind was a mess, and I hadn't figured out what I wanted. So I thought the easiest thing to do was to hide for a while. Then senior year got busy. I didn't bring it up, and neither did he. Eventually, the whole thing just faded into silence. I never realized he'd misunderstood for so long. He cared too much, that's why he was so careful. Too afraid to even hear an answer. Idiot. I lifted his chin, pretending to study his face from different angles. My mom's been nagging me to find a boyfriend, I said lightly. I figured you're not a bad option. What do you think? Outside, holiday lights twinkled through the window, and faint laughter drifted up from the street. Inside, the TV host's cheerful voice wished everyone Merry Christmas. Jason's brows knit together. He looked at me for a long, long time. And when he finally realized I wasn't joking, the emotion in his eyes surged, unrestrained and overwhelming. Like waves crashing over me. Perfect, he whispered. I cupped his face, smiling as I kissed his brow, his nose, the corner of his lips. I don't know who moved first. But soon clothes were half-slipped. And I was pressed beneath him. His kisses trailed along my ear and neck. His fingertips tracing fire wherever they touched. In the dark, the air grew hot and unsteady. His every movement was both tender and consuming. My mind unraveled completely. I could only follow, move, drown with him. And when his deep, ragged voice trembled against my skin, we both shattered at the peak. By the second half of the night, I was utterly spent. But he still wasn't. Chapter 13. On the fourth day of the new year, I brought Jason home. My mom was overjoyed, she cooked 12 dishes in one go and even called Jason's parents to come over and join us. His dad was cheerful, always smiling, but his mom, not so much. She glared at Jason. You tricked our Anna into being with you? Such a good girl, how could you little brat? How did a jerk like you manage to snag such a good girl? Honestly, I could just scream. If my mom hadn't stepped in, Jason might have been hit with a rolling pin that day. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, if someone didn't know better, they'd think your mom was mine. Unfortunately, his mom heard that. Without hesitation, she grabbed the rolling pin and chased him around the house. You brat. What do you mean your mom? I'm Anna's godmother. If you ever dare bully her, I'll break your legs myself. Jason's yelps filled the house, mixed with my mom's attempts to calm things down, and the laughter of my dad and his. And suddenly, I remembered back in high school, one afternoon when Jason was helping me study, his face full of frustration. You're hopeless. How are you ever going to get into Beaumont's university? I'd frowned. Why Beaumont? He'd stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. Forget it. I'll just apply to Creston instead. Years later, I realized Beaumont was where he had wanted to go. He'd tutored me, pushed me, hoping we could go there together. But in the end, he gave up that dream for me. I also remembered the little game he'd made, the pixel character looked exactly like the one I'd drawn of him in middle school art class. The teacher had told us to draw the most important person in our lives. I'd thought my parents were too hard to draw, so I'd sketched him instead. I never imagined he'd treasured that silly doodle for all these years. Love doesn't always begin with fireworks. Sometimes, it grows quietly, woven into the small, unnoticed details of every ordinary day.